Thank you, Ivan, for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Morgan, for a nice intro. Yes, hello to everyone. Some of you probably have seen me or my talks earlier in Pranic World Festival 2018, 19, maybe even 20. I don't know when was the last one. Yeah, I did talk about some scientific views of pranic people and pranic living. And some of those who are familiar with my work, they know that I developed a scale, very sensitive scale, which we can use to measure the difference in the weight of meditators during their session, which is amazing. I think it's probably the first time that somebody is measuring the life, the changes in the weight, in the weight of participants. So the aim was to see, is there any change in the weight in a way that the weight is increasing during the meditation. So maybe I'll let you translate some of this.
Thank you, Ivan, for speaking slowly and having small pauses for the translators. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Will you tell me when I can continue to talk or? Okay. So the idea was to weigh participants while they're meditating, because as you probably know, according to physics and medicine or medical research, is telling us that pranic living is not possible, according to conventional science and our knowledge, current knowledge. Pranic living is simply no. It's a taboo. Whenever I talk with my colleagues, physicists or medical specialists, they say, no, it is not possible. No one can live for a year or 2 or 3 or even a month without physical food. And we all know now that this is possible. There are around you, there are people who are pranic. I know personally quite a number of them. And I know that these people are not cheaters. They are genuine, pranic, living people. And it has been like that throughout the history, not only in the East, but also in so-called West, in Europe. There have been many known cases of pranic living throughout the history. So it is the fact that pranic living is possible. And as a scientist, I did the first obvious thing, and this is to find out the way to measure prana. Prana so far cannot be measured. Prana is usually translated as life energy, life force, or in Eastern culture, it's chi or ki. In Christianity, it's called manna, God's food. Okay, so it's a natural phenomena, or you can call it force, which is not yet known to scientific world. But this is nothing new. We all know that throughout the development of science, there were changes in paradigm, many changes throughout the development in the last 1,000 years of science. You know, people believe that the earth is flat for centuries, and it took a while to convince them otherwise. Also, people didn't know about electromagnetic waves. If somebody came up in middle centuries with walkie-talkie or TV, they would say, wow, this is a miracle. How can you transmit pictures on the other part of the world? It's a miracle. The same is probably with prana. We simply have no instruments, no means of measuring this life force, because as we now assume, it is happening on the quantum level. It's happening on the level which is so low in size, in intensity, that we simply have no instruments to measure it. So I did the first obvious thing, and this is to use subjects who are on pranic path to see if they are gaining mass while sitting on the scale. And we did many experiments with many people who were level 3 or level 4 pranic. By now you all know what that means. And I realized that most people lose weight while sitting on the scale, but with very, very different intensity, with very different amount. Some people who are not level 3 or level 4 will lose something between 50 and 100 grams per hour. Grams per hour, that's like 2 or 3 spoonfuls of mass. And this is mass which we lose through evaporation. So our skin is evaporating, the water is coming out of our bodies, and also through mouth and CO2. While we are breathing oxygen, we are expelling CO2. CO2 is a process of burning calories in our bodies, either fat or sugar. Just like cars are, the exhaust coming from the car is also CO2 plus other gases. But this CO2 is heavier than oxygen that comes in. So we are losing also weight through CO2. And the rate of energy loss is, as I mentioned, 50 to 100 grams per hour. When level 3 people sit on the scale and they are good meditators, they lose almost nothing. So their weight is stable. Their metabolism is so slow that even though they are breathing and even though they are living normal, they look normal, their mass loss is minimal. And this is something really amazing. It's amazing that there is such a big difference in the rate of energy loss. Not only energy loss, but actually mass loss. So I was puzzled, and we did all kinds of experiments with this. Some people even gain the weight, gain the mass while sitting on the scale. Although there were only a few of this, but this is something that I was actually looking for. I wanted to find pranic people level 4, so people who do not eat, do not consume physical food at all, and hoping that they will gain the weight while sitting on the scale. As I said earlier, this happened only in few occasions. One lady from Belgium, she was aware of gaining the weight, and she knew exactly how to meditate to gain the weight. And she did it several times. She sat on my scale And she said, okay, I'll now meditate 10 or 15 minutes and watch my weight. And indeed, she gained like between 50 and 150 grams in those 15 minutes of sitting at the scale. This was amazing. And it's contrary to all we know about the conservation of mass and conservation of energy. These are two pillars of modern mechanics or modern science. We believe in science that mass or energy cannot be created in the system that is closed. So if you have a box of any kind of box, like black box, and you put it on the scale, there is no way that that box will change the weight if there is no input of mass or energy into that box. Our body is kind of this kind of black box. So usually if you don't take physical food, you expect that our mass will just go down slowly. We lose weight, okay? This is normal. This is what everybody expects, and this is what's happening. But no one has ever measured this effect that while sitting on the scale and meditating, one can absorb prana and convert this prana or life energy into a mass and gain the weight. If you talk to pranic people, I guess you have quite a number of pranic level 4 people around you. They will all tell you, yes, I know if I walk through the forest or if I do this and that, I know I will gain the weight. You know, this is equal to a miracle. All my colleagues, physicists, and as well as medics will say, no, this is not possible. And they will kind of crucify those scientists who believe otherwise, like myself. Luckily, I'm a retired scientist, so I can afford to play with this kind of experiments. And I believe that I'm still working on this. I mean, this is work in progress, and I did all kind of experiments in that respect. We were like in Kokora a few years ago, a group of 10 of level 3 pranic friends. We walk around the hill in Kokora, and we weigh all the participants before the walk and after the walk. So the walk was about 2.5 kilometers uphill and then downhill. You probably know this walk through the forest. The idea was to see who will lose weight and how much, and will there be any participants gaining the weight? Yeah, I was again puzzled. And some participants who were level 2 pranic, they lost like 150 grams during that walk, which lasted like about half an hour. We walk all together and we kind of keep an eye on everyone. Everybody was making sure that no one will put a pebble in the pocket, or a little stone or sand to gain the weight. So there was no cheaters. But I was puzzled to see that some people lost like 150 grams during that walk, and some people didn't lose a single gram, maybe 2-3 grams, which is incredible. That means that these people are tapping on some other sources of energy or even matter, and they're converting this life energy or prana into a matter, not only into energy, but also matter, because all the time they were expelling CO2 and they were losing mass because their carbon in the expelled air, I measured the carbon in the expelled air, the carbon concentration was the same as in all other people who were not pranic level. So our CO2 in expelled air is usually between 4 and 5%. I measure CO2 in expelled air of pranic people, and it was exactly the same as ours, as normal people. They do burn carbon in their bodies, they do burn sugar or fat in their bodies to get energy, and this sugar was automatically replenished by a new sugar from a source of unknown origin. So this is really equal to a miracle. And I wish my colleagues are open for this kind of studies and embark on this kind of studies, because it's really interesting, very, very interesting. I also measured the sugar level in pranic level 4 people. And as you know, sugar level in our pranic level 2, 3, or 1 is usually between 6, 7, between 4, 5, 6, 7 millimoles per liter. 5 leverage. If you go into ketosis, so if you are on diet or water diet for a couple of days or a week, your sugar level will go down to 2 to 3 millimoles per liter. And this is exactly the sugar level that pranic people have. I measured that level, and they also have sugar in their blood, and CO2 that they expel is also an indicator that they are burning sugar. So the big question is now, where is this sugar coming from? For us who are eating, it's obvious. When we are eating carbs, bread, pizza, or rice, or any other carbs, these carbs will be in our body after very little period, very short period, converted into sugar. And that sugar will be then transported with the help of insulin, will be transported into our cells and converted into energy. This is a standard, well-known physiology of conversion of sugar into the energy. But for pranic people, the question is where the sugar is coming from. How can it be that it looks like they have a fusion reactor in their bodies. Scientists who are working in this area, like, for example, those who are daring enough to work on this area is, for example, Nassim Haramein. I think he will be one of the speakers as well in this Pranic World Festival 22. He believes, and many other people believe, that the miracle is happening within mitochondria. Every cell, our cell has hundreds of mitochondria. Mitochondria are our powerhouses of our cells. The tiny little organelles within our cells. Some cells have hundreds, some even thousands of mitochondria, depending on the function of the cell. And these mitochondria convert sugar into energy by means of ATP molecule. And the processes that are happening within mitochondria are kind of known, very complex, but I believe that there are functions of mitochondria that modern science is still not aware of. It's very difficult to study this kind of processes in vivo, because they are very, very, very small. And pranic people are not really interested in doing experiments with science. And beside to understand what's happening in mitochondria, it's best to do it in vitro or in small petri dishes, not really in the organism, in the life human being, because of practical reasons. You can't put electron microscope or a cell of Pranic level 4 subject into the electronic microscope and study the process. So there are many practical problems actually how to do that. But it's obvious, I mean, from my result, my analysis, it's obvious that these people are disobeying these two pillars of modern science, and that's the conservation of energy. They're able to gain energy over and over again and again without taking any physical food, as well as conservation of mass. Their mass is steady. Most pranic people, I don't know, I'm not sure how many pranic level 4 people are around you now, or how many you know personally, but all of them that I know, they usually have a steady weight. And their loss of energy, according to all the measurements that I have done, is the same as ours. Most of these pranic people are actually more dynamic and more active than pranic level 2 or 3, because they have a lot of energy. They sleep very little, 2-3 hours a day, and they have endless source of energy, at least those that I know. So where is this energy coming from, and where is the mass coming from? Nobody knows. Yeah. So this is a puzzle that I am interested in, and I'm going to continue this kind of measurements. And maybe something I would like to say now to you before we go to questions is a few words about physiology of fasting. I believe that many of you are now in consuming very little physical food. And there are some amazing things that are happening, which some of you maybe are aware of. And this is the very interesting changes in the body, on the hormonal level, when you start fasting. I guess most of you are aware of ketosis, and you know what ketosis is. For those who are not sure, I will just repeat quickly. Our primary fuel is our carbs, carbohydrates. And these carbohydrates are found in most of the food that modern people are consuming. Unfortunately, most of the calories that we are consuming in the Western world are coming these days from carbohydrates. So these carbohydrates are found in bread, in rice, and pasta, and many veggie, like starchy veggie, like potatoes, sweet potatoes, pumpkins, and so on. They have a lot of carbs. And these carbs are easily converted into energy with the use of insulin. Insulin is like a key that is opening the cells, the cell receptors, so that molecule of carbs can enter the cell and being then in mitochondria converted to energy. Those who consume too much carbs for that particular day, the excess of carbs will be stored in your liver. as it's called glycogen. Liver can contain quite a large amount of glycogen, and it's our reserve, the first line of reserve of energy. If liver is already fully loaded, then the excess of energy, of carbs, will be converted into fat through the process of glycolysis. So it will be converted into fat, and these are our fat reserves that people can use during the fasting process. Fat has a very high caloric value, much higher than sugar, than carbs, and so much that if you are not consuming any food for a day or 2 or 3 or 5, you will start using your fat reserves, and it will take about 200 to 300 grams of fat to consume to produce those usual 2,000 to 3,000 kilocalories that we use for a day. Right. What I wanted to say is that people who are obese, who have a lot of reserves of fat in their belly fat or wherever it is deposited, they can't lose this fat until they use up all the glycogen and glucoses in their bloodstream. This is something that usually dietitians don't talk about, but it is true that your fat will start disappearing, will start reducing only when all glycogen is exhausted from your bloodstream. So when the sugar level is very low, when there is no sugar in your blood or very, very low, then the ketosis will kick in and you will start using your reserves in the fat reserves. And this happens usually after 2 or 3 days of no carbs consuming. So if you try to reach ketosis, and ketosis has another advantage, that once when you're in ketosis, which means that you are using only your fat reserves, your so-called internal doctor will wake up. Your autophagy, the autophagy kicks in, and autophagy is a process which I believe many of you heard already about it. It's a process of restoring, recycling the dead cell. In your body, we have about 35 trillion cells in our bodies, and as many parasites and viruses in our bodies, but let's ignore them. 35 trillion cells in your body many of them are dying all the time. And it's estimated that it's about 1 to 1.5 million cells dies per second. Every second, you are losing 1.5 million cells, which means about 100 million cells per hour. Those cells would otherwise be wasted, and they would be expelled from your body either through urine or feces or sweat. But in the process of autophagy, they are usually restored. And autophagy will kick in once when you are in ketosis. So only when you exhaust all your carbs, ketosis kicks in, and your internal doctor will wake up and start healing your body. So just to summarize once again, if you are consuming a lot of carbs, autophagy is dormant. Once when you start consuming only fat, healthy fat, in small amounts, ketosis will kick in and autophagy will wake up, will start restoring your body. This is why fasting is very, very useful, because after 2 or 3 days of living on water, you are automatically in ketosis. You exhausted all your sugar in your blood. Ketones kick in into your body. Autophagy kicks in. And with autophagy, there are many hormonal changes happening in your body. One of the significant and one of the first factor that is really kicks in is adrenaline. People who are, most of you probably consume very little physical food now when you're in Kokore, you probably notice that you are euphoric. And that's because when the sugar is low, ketosis kicks in, and adrenaline, the concentration of adrenaline in your blood goes up to 5-10 times the normal adrenaline level. And you feel light, you feel like you can fly. You have a lot of energy. At least that's your impression. That's you feel light. And that's the consequence of very high concentration of adrenaline. The next hormone that will kick in is the growth hormone. Growth hormone will increase 5 to 10, even more times than normal growth hormone, normal levels. And this will help restore some of your tissues, wounds, or any inflammations that you have in your body. For example, if you have arthritis, the autophagy will result in cleaning up all the inflamed organs, like your joints. And with the help of growth hormone and stem cells, also the number of stem cells will be increased. Your tissue will be restored to the original state. These are scientific facts. So it is scientifically proven. I mean, you can find on YouTube and a lot of literature, a lot of books that talk about it. The advantages of fasting. It's amazing. It's amazing, and it's a pity that not many people are following your way. It's really very, very useful and very it's the best medicine actually that you can take. So if you have any kind of, I wouldn't say any, but most of the inflammation processes, even plaques in your arteries. So if somebody has high blood pressure or diabetes, all this can be cured quite easily by going into ketosis, fasting for a week or 2 or 3, and you will see that your health will dramatically improve. Of course, I should mention here that one has to be careful, and this is valid for those who are healthy or relatively healthy, which have no problems with, I don't know, like you should consult your doctor. But at least those doctors that are open to holistic way of healing. Many doctors are not aware of this, and they will not approve. But that most of you know about autophagy already, and that's one of the reasons why you are there in Kokore. So just keep up with good work, and work on your ketosis and your fasting, and you will see that you will feel good and better. Of course, I've been on many processes when we fasted for 3 weeks, and I know very well what is going on when you fast for a week or 2 or 3 when you are on water only. People go through amazing processes, detox on physical level and then emotional level, and it's something that I would recommend to anyone who wants to heal either on physical or emotional level. Right. I don't know. Was it too fast?
No, that was perfect. Thank you, Ivan.
Okay.
Are you able to take a couple of questions at this time?
Okay.
Wonderful. There is someone online who has the question. I am a younger woman who has been making my way toward a pranic transition. They're basically fruitarian right now with frequent fasting, and they've not had a menstrual cycle in several months. Is this common for women to experience? And can you share your perspective on the menstrual cycle in relation to pranic lifestyle?
Well, I don't know much about the lady. How young is she?
They don't say, they just say, I am a younger woman. So I'm assuming it's not menopausal or premenopausal.
Yeah. To be honest, I didn't come to any of this kind of problems so far, and don't know how much is it connected to her pranic way. Yeah, but I would suggest that if somebody really wants to be, I mean, it's contrary to common beliefs that fruitarianism is a good way of turning it to a pranic level. Fruits, most of the fruits have a lot of starch and a lot of carbs. If you're consuming fruits, your body is full of carbs. Ketosis is not kicking in, and you will never become pranic. Not easily. The best way to feel the advantages of autophagy and keto is to switch to fats. So instead of consuming a lot of fruits, you only can consume nuts, which have a lot of fats, and then oils, natural oils, like olive oil. And fruits, from fruits, I would suggest fruits with very little carbs, like forest fruits, not apples, not oranges. Because as long as you have carbs in your body, there is no ketosis and there is no means to wake up your internal doctor. The internal doctor and the ketosis and autophagy will be dormant. So I don't know. I would suggest that it's best to follow your own heart and your own body needs. Maybe some people need fruits and they need carbs, but this is not, I would say, the fastest way to pranic living. Faster would be to consume keto diet, less and less, and slowly switch to prana. And then the effect of autophagy and all the other physiological changes that follows will be sooner, achieved sooner. Yeah, because like I said earlier, there are 3 main sources of energy. Carbs is the first fat is second, and proteins third. Proteins are usually consumed in a very small amount. But once when you switch from carbs, carb is level 1 and 2. And on level 3, people should be switching more and more to keto diet and consume very little fruits. So, to be honest, like I said earlier, I am not familiar with menstrual changes affected by switching to Breatharianism. I'm not, and I think this kind of questions are very personal, and it's best to discuss with somebody in person, so that you can gain more information and see what's behind. Maybe there are other reasons. Like I said, it's like very big emotional, not only physical but emotional changes and awakenings are happening during this process of fasting. So it's a complex process, very complex. Yeah.
Thank you, Ivan. Fabio, do we have any questions from the live audience there? We can just get you to speak more quietly than that into the
avoid microphone. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. My question is about ketosis. My understanding was that it kicks in a much shorter time, after 14 hours. So my understanding of fasting was once I hit the 14-hour point, already the mechanisms are beginning to function. But I understood from you that maybe it only comes full power after 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Can you comment a little bit, please?
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's these days it's very popular, so-called intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is proposing windows of 8-16. You eat 8 hours, 16 hours resting, and don't take food, which is all fine. But you will not achieve ketosis to its full potential. And especially not if during this period of feeding, you consume a lot of carbs, because it takes few hours or more, depending on what kind of carbs you are consuming, to get out from your blood all the carbs that you have. Ketosis will not kick in if you have glucose in your bloodstream. It's simply not. Insulin is suppressing the production of ketones in your liver or in your cells. Simply, if there is insulin in high concentration in your bloodstream, ketones will not be produced. So the best way to achieve ketosis is to eat, let's say, 1 meal a day or 2 within a few hours, but consuming mostly fat, natural fat, like olive oil, cheese, and forest fruits, all the food that contains fat and very little carbs. If you consume half a kilo of bread, it will flood your bloodstream with sugar, and you won't get rid of sugar from your bloodstream during this 18 hours of fasting. Because you still have some sugar in your glycogen in your liver, And as long as there is a glycogen in liver, if liver is not clean, you will still have high level of insulin and sugar in your bloodstream, and ketosis will not kick in. You have there are these days you can find on the market there are devices that you can use to measure ketones in your bloodstream, but either using strips, which you dip into urine, and then you see what is the concentration of ketones in your blood, or you use a little sensors which are similar to those that you measure when you measure sugar level in your blood. There is similar instrument that you can use for ketones. So you can use it every day and see how much sugar you have in your blood after, let's say, 10-15 hours of being on fasting, and you will see probably after a couple of days, if you don't consume too much carbs, maybe only 10 or 20% of your calorie intake to be carbs, then your ketones will go up. So intermittent fasting, I would say, is effective if you consume those through this feeding window. If you consume mostly fat, if you consume a lot of carbs, let's say 50% or more than 50% of carbs, calorie intake is based on carbs, then you will not achieve the full potential of intermittent fasting. So I would suggest this kind of intermittent fasting is good. You will wake up autophagy in a way, but only if you reduce the intake of carbs. That's one condition. And it's best to shrink this feeding window to not to, from 8 to 4 hours, or maybe only one meal a day. And then you will achieve a ketosis sooner. And as I said, again, to be sure that you're in ketosis, you use either keto strips and measure keton level, and you will see that you will need quite a number of days of intermittent fasting to achieve high concentration of ketones. Yeah, it's not easy. Usually, if I'm on water only, I achieve high level of ketones only about 4 or 5 days into the water fasting only. 5th, 6th day, because I have quite a lot of glycogen, and as long as liver is not clean, the concentration of sugar in your blood is too high, and ketones will not kick in. So cut on carbs. Fruits are good and nice, and fruit juices, but keep it. Make sure that the juices that you drink are low carb juices, like coconut water, not coconut milk, but coconut water, for example. That's a good start. If you drink apple juice or orange juice, that's not good way. Yeah.
Thank you, Ivan.
Vegetable juices are good, but
Okay.
again, vegetable that contains green veggies, not veggies that contain a lot of carbs. Yeah.
Thank you, Ivan, for your answer to the question.
Welcome.
I have another question from somebody online who is asking, do you have any specific recommendations for people starting off on a pranic journey who are already very thin?
Yes, I think being thin and skinny it's not a problem. I mean, you can ask the universe to adjust your weight to your liking. Ask Yasmuhin or any other pranic people, and they all know that they will get whatever they need. Yasmuhin has a very nice story about it. You know, when she turned pranic, she looked like a skeleton, and people commented, "What's wrong with you? What's happening? Are you sick?" and blah blah. And then she got sick and tired of this kind of questions, and she said, "Please, Creator, make my body perfect and make my body." And she said that within a week or 10 days or so, she gained the weight and she looked much healthier and better. You know, so if you're well connected, you will adjust your weight to whatever you need. Yeah, but of course, to get connected, you all know it's not an easy. There is no an easy answer, an easy way. We all get connected in different ways and at different times, and after working hard, usually. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Ivan. I think we're about at our time now. We're close to the hour. Is there any way that anyone can get a hold of you if they have other questions that we didn't get to? Do you have a way for folks to connect with you?
Yeah, I would just like to emphasize once again that it's important to achieve ketosis, reduce your carbs, intake of carbs. Okay.
So he would like to know what kind of vegetables is right to enter in ketosis.
Yeah, I believe that it's a vegetable that is colored vegetable that grows above the earth. Peanuts. Even if you ask Ayurvedic people, they will say that even garlic and onion is not good, which I'm not so sure about it. But anything that is colored, so vegetable that has a lot of color. Color means antioxidants and lots of minerals and vitamins. So, and no carbs. You know, in leafy vegetables like spinach, rucola, and I don't know, I can even cauliflower and vegetable that doesn't contain too much carbs is always good. Yeah, I would say that also from time to time you can eat squash, you know, pumpkin. There are a lot of minerals and vitamins in this, and not too much carbs. So I am of the school that is, you know, that is proposing reducing carbs. Because our original diet of humans, like when you look at indigenous people in Africa, in Australia, in America, wherever, most of them seldom eat any carbs, very few carbs. They eat either, if they are carnivores, they will eat animals that they hunt, they're hunters, or they eat forest fruits. Very seldom there are carbs. And when these people are exposed to Western diet, they become very big and fat, because Western diet contains like 60, 70, 80 of calorie intake is coming from carbs, which is not natural. Our natural intake of energy is either fats or veggie that contains, or fruits, forest fruits also, like blueberries, blackberries. You know, they have very little carbs and a lot of vitamins, antioxidants, and minerals. Yeah. And the less processed, the better. You know, it's like margarine is off the charts, and all these trans fats. Yeah, all this modern processed food is big no. You all know that. That's why you are in Kokore. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all of your insights and wisdom and scientific knowledge with us, Ivan.
Thank
We've really
you.
enjoyed it. There's a beautiful gathering, as you can see, here in Kokore and online as well. And everyone has a lot of gratitude for you for presenting to us
Okay.
what you have to share. We're at our time now to close up. So thank you everyone for joining us for
Thank you,
this.
everyone. Thank you for listening. Bye. Enjoy your time.